Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Mainstream news, Bloomberg is admitting, OPEC is saying, look, the dollar has plunged, 72% of oil increases, the dollar plunging, then people are dumping the dollar, that causes speculation. Everything you warned about when it had doubled 3 years ago, now it's doubled again. Now they're talking about $8 a gallon gas if we attack. You're talking about in a story here for Press TV, Ron Paul, Iran will triple energy prices. Break down what we're going to see with energy if we don't attack, or what you think will happen if we do.
Well, if we do, it's going to be a disaster. Obviously, it's going to be pushed up. The other day, I was astounded on one of the business stations. They were talking about Iran, and they were talking about it in terms of not are we going to, but the debate was, do you think they're going to bomb before the election or after the election? So it's sort of like a foregone conclusion that we're going to. Mm-hmm. And why wouldn't the oil prices be bid up? So there is a lot of speculation. There's a lot of that. And then they turn around and they say, well, it's the speculators that are doing it. Well, the speculators are sometimes smart people. Their job is to go out and speculate and find out what the price is due to current events, monetary policy and financial trouble and foreign policy. So these are legitimate, intelligent people who are bidding up the price of oil because of the potential of a war. I kept saying in the campaign, you know, if I had my way, they said, well, what would you do immediately if you were elected president? I said, I'd bring our troops home and I'd bring our Navy out of the Persian Gulf. And I said, the dollar would probably go up in value and we would eliminate the risk premium. Probably oil prices would drop precipitously. And it would be just by removing this threat. But, you know, next week, possibly that resolution, H.J. Res. 362, I believe it is, if that comes up, it is demanding the president put on an absolute blockade of the entire country of Iran and punish any country or any business group around the world if they trade with Iran. I mean, this is very, very serious business. And
experts are saying we're going to see $6 a gallon gas if that happens immediately.
Right. It would. I mean, we may get there just by anticipation, but when it happens, and then what if the Iranians are capable of sinking a couple ships out there?
Or if it accidentally happens in the Gulf of Tonkin.
Yeah, that's true. But the other thing is it's risking 150,000 Americans in Iraq. I mean, do you think they don't know the potential problems coming? Do you think that they not are working with their allies in Iraq? I mean, could they blockade and actually squeeze our troops to that point? I mean, you just can't get enough helicopters to fly these people out of there.
Well, what happens if the neocons launch 2,000 Saudis, as they're saying they'll do, bomb the infrastructure, with Saddam, with the U.S.-backed military in that 8-year war when Iraq was a first world nation? They barely could beat the Iranians, and the Iranians lost 1 million. Now the Iranians are built up, to analysts say, about twice the strength they had in the 80s, and they're saying they will overrun and go into Iraq, and unless the U.S. uses nukes, they will completely overrun our military. I mean, this is a Custer last stand situation.
Yeah, and the frightening thing is they say that they take no options off the tables, even nuclear first strike. So if they are really determined, and they keep pointing out that there are some plans for the Iranians to retaliate, that might give them the argument, well, they might retaliate, so we better bomb all their military sites. And these people in the administration are capable of advising the use of nuclear power, nuclear weapons.
Oh, yeah, they've been preparing the public, and you're right. Just in the last week, they've gone from, we're probably going to attack Iran, to, is it going to happen before the election in November or in between that time when Obama or McCain comes in? January 23rd, and so we're now hearing foregone conclusion. We only saw that right before the last two Gulf Wars. I mean, sir, what are you hearing on the Hill? I mean, has it been green-lighted?
That is my sense, because the Democratic leadership in the House are proposing no resistance whatsoever. We saw that when this supplemental bill came up. When the president asked for $107 billion for the war, the Democrat leadership gave him $162 billion. And they are not resisting it. The leadership of the Democratic Party is solidly behind this blockade. They already have 220 members who have signed on the bill, well over the number that they need to pass it. They're so confident that they think, I imagine they'll bring this up under suspension. So no, I think they're very much ready. But they don't think any further than their front of their nose. I mean, they're not saying, well, could this be like what we did to Iraq? Could this backfire on us? They just march right on, and it's, as long as I've been there and as long as I've studied this, it still is totally bewildering to me when I see men and women in the Congress that I know and like and talk with, and I don't think that, they're, doing this because they think it's going to materially benefit them. They just do it to go along, to get along, and they've been convinced. Most of them will come across and say, oh, yes, I agree with you on all you say, but the Iranians are bad people, and they might attack us someday, and we can't let them have. They buy into all the propaganda. They never stop and think about it.
Okay, Congressman, I'm actually, for Internet listeners, going to skip this break coming up right now. For others, we'll be right back in about 3 minutes. Congressman Ron Paul, to me, everything that's happening is so bizarre historically, so obviously World War III-ish, so obviously over the top and criminal by this government, and the supine nature, the prostrate nature of the Democrats, watching the John Yoo and Addington testimony, the arrogance. I mean, sometimes I'm pinching myself like this is a bad nightmare, and I mean that literally. I feel history is happening now. Do you feel that same, and then also intellectually analyzing this? I mean, what's your feeling watching this happen?
As we were leading up to the Iraqi war, I described it as being surreal. It's like I'm hearing this, but I don't believe it's happening. It's something that you might read in history that people blundered, but I'm in the middle of this total blundering like it can't possibly be true. And then with the total failure of what we've done over there, they're preparing to expand the war. They don't. We don't even report it anymore. It is. I consider the election right now between these two individuals have no real difference in their policies as a planned distraction from the real issues. Do they talk about what's happening in Afghanistan? That place is deteriorating, and this whole idea, do they ever talk about 1 million people that were killed since we invaded Iraq? And do they point out which oil companies are getting no bid contracts and looking forward to selling more and more oil? No, they're talking about what Obama said and what McCain said, and picking away at little statements. It's just a total distraction from the important issues.
Well, it certainly is. So 95% chance they're going to go ahead and bombard. We know some of the public plans about hitting several hundred sites, a month or so of attacks, hundreds of Saudis a day. Are you getting any gauge, because you really studied history, or up there on the Hill from intelligence, about what Iran will probably do?
Well, I think they're going to do whatever they can. They're not going to roll over, and they have more weapons now than they used to have. I think they're going to do exactly what a lot of us suspected they could do, and that is go after some of our ships. I believe they are capable of closing the Straits of Hormuz, and that is when the escalation is going to occur. Then I think if one of our ships are sunk, it'll be the Gulf of Tonkin thing tenfold over, and the American people will say, boy, well, you can't be a wimp. You got to go after them. Nuke them, nuke them. I hear members of Congress on the floor actually talking that way, yeah. If we could only nuke them, that would take care of it.
Unbelievable. Congressman, we're coming back to the full audience. Here we go. For PrisonPlanet.tv viewers, we're talking behind the scenes with the congressman about members of Congress talking about nuking Iran on the floor. And I've heard them on talk radio. The talking point from the White House is we're going to blow their country up, water treatment, roads, airports, any infrastructure. And then if they dare fight back in any way, we're going to hit them with tactical nukes all over the country. how morally are they going to sell, not just to us but the world, that we're going to attack you when you don't even have any weapons, when you've been groveling to the UN for years, and then if you fight back in any way, we're going to nuke you? I mean, imagine if Hitler would have had nukes and would have said, I'm going to attack Poland, and if they fight back, I'm going to nuke them. I mean, this is, like you were saying earlier, this is otherworldly. This is surreal.
But to me, the biggest challenge has been, and the biggest eye-opener has been in these last several years, is how strongly some of our Christian evangelical groups join in. That is so disturbing to me, and yet they do. You know, the Christian Zionist groups are urging this on in the name of Christianity. I mean, they didn't learn the same Christianity that I learned. I just cannot conceive of this, and yet there are millions that way that are just pushing this war.